Who's presenting this? The Georgia State Parks on the Air Planning Group, or some of us anyway. And that's the list. If you're on that list, and you're not here to represent yourself, I'm going to talk about you pretty bad. That's okay. If you know any of these guys, tell them where were you if they're not here. Jess is one of them. So this is about, I got introduction to POTA, but I think our title officially was how to set up a Parks on Air station. But before we get into the actual hardware of what you do when you get to the park, it's good to have a little background of what's going on. Oh, no. Don't tell Dallas. Oh, they're late. I'm not early. 20 seconds, come on. I'm on UTC time. Well, I'll tell Dallas you're doing a great job then. Dallas will send it to 15 different groups. Who knows Dallas, M4DDM? Who gets emails from him? If you don't, let me know because I'll get you on his list. He does a great job of distributing information about GARS events and stuff like that too. Still get the rogue sheet. Come on in, have a seat, look around. I didn't know I was going to be supervised. You do work in IT, don't you? Okay, well, Richard does too, but he's not that way, you know. I just say it takes all kinds. So, what does it take to activate a park? You, whether you're a hunter, an activator, or an organizer. These are the guys or girl that are in our Georgia State Parks on the Air group. And I'm down next to the bottom because I did in reverse alpha order. I'm Claude Ray, AC4SH. Uh-oh. There it goes. And like I said, Parks on the Air, when did it start? Anybody know? 2017. It just followed up after NPOTA, which was National Parks on the Air, which was done on the 100th anniversary of the National Park System. You got to be a hunter or an activator to take part. You can also be a volunteer, and that's what it takes to do Parks on the Air. Plus, they've got, I would say, you IT guys tell me, do they have a pretty robust computer system that runs all this stuff? If you ever gone in and look at results, metrics, awards, that's what keeps it growing. And this is, Jason Johnson put these figures out. I have to trust W3AAX. 14,000 activators, 512,000 hunters. Was it 22 million QSOs? That's a lot of radio time getting burned up. Somebody told me just yesterday, I can't turn the dial without finding something about POTA. Well, that's good. That's okay. Yeah. Now I won't go anymore on that. And one reason is the award. One reason is the metric you see on the website. And if you like it and want to, you can pay them money because you can go to the parksonair.com page, and there's a link where you can do multiple ways to pay them money. But you don't have to pay anything. You just enjoy it. You can spend that money on radios or whatever. That's a good idea. I'm not going to try to find that. You know? Bing. So if you want to get involved with Parks on Air, you do not have to sign up. But you're going to have a lot better experience if you do. Because I was talking to somebody earlier, and they said, I don't know whether I've done any parks or not. I think I did. But a lot of people do this. They sign up and pop. They've already hunted some parks, and the records show up. But to do it, you go to that URL right there, pota.app. It's not an app for your iPhone. It's actually a web address. When you go there, if you hadn't ever signed up before, you can click on the orange button and sign up. And it'll take you through the steps to set up your the account, and it'll give you some videos to watch. You're getting started, and what's cut off on the bottom of the screen is, I wonder why it does that. That projector. IT thing. Okay. All right. Anyway, it says the code of conduct. It's basically the golden rule. Do the right thing. Don't key up on top of somebody. Don't try to tail in somebody when they call it. Just do the right thing. And that saying that feels good, but it doesn't always work. Once you do sign up on the POTA.app page and you're a registered Parks on Air activator or hunter, either one, whatever you got an account, the next time you sign in, you're going to see this spotting page, and it'll look something like that. Who's got anything to say about that? What do you see different on yours versus mine? I don't know. So I've got it circled where it says mode, because I'm not like Richard. I don't do CW very much, so I look at sideband most of the time, but you can change what the mode is here, so you don't want to see that. A lot of complaints I've heard about this page is when I'm trying to hunt, it scrolls off a screen. Who's ever said that? Who's ever seen that? Oh, okay, well, good. You can click the pause button. It'll stop it anyway if that is a problem. I've got it sorted by frequency, so rather than being by time, it's still sorted. That's another way I kind of halfway pause mine, is I know I can scroll up and down, and the lowest band operating is going to be at the top. It's on 7255 right there, and that's it. Any questions on that page?
Just a point. The first time they see the screen, it's not going to look like that. It's going to be the tile.
That's right. It is configured for multiple different variations of viewing. I don't have a copy of the tile screen, but you're right, Richard. It'll show like 3 by 2 or something like that, or maybe deeper, and each one's got its own way. I like it in the line format, and it changes depending on what screen you got too, the way it arranges, and it's more visible sometimes too.
Click on the hamburger menu at the top left.
Yeah.
That'll give you an option. You scroll down and a little toggle preferred table view, and you'll get that view.
Okay. Click on the hamburger, choose table or list view.
Otherwise, we're not going to.
No, I got you. Okay. Here, you want to do this? All right. So, well, I don't know why I did that. I thought I had hunters first. Anyway, activators are people that take all this stuff you see around the sides of the room, set it up at the park, call CQ, and all they really have to do is get and give you who they are, where they are, and that sort of stuff. But they have to file the log. I must have lost a slide because hunters don't have to do any of that. Hunters have to sit at home. They have to find the activators, or not necessarily at home. It could be in their vehicle. They could be camping out somewhere. They could be at another park. And they don't have to submit a log unless they're in a park. But the onus is on the activators. Must be hitting the wrong button. Onus is on us activators to file that log, so both hunters and activators get credit. So where's the closest park to us? I've talked to a few people today about how do you find your parks. Well, you can't just go out to Sandy Creek Nature Center in Athens, Georgia, because it's not a POTA park. But you can go to the POTA.app, select map, or the park list, whichever way you like. If you got location enabled, it'll pop up a map closest to us, and that's pretty close to centered to where we are right now. And then I went ahead and clicked on the yellow dot over there under the blue pin, and it shows Fort Yargo is really close. And if you want to find out more about Kilo 2177 Fort Yargo, you can go click on that more info, and this is part of the page that shows up. Tells you when the early shift, late shift times are, latitude and longitude. I don't know, it's going to, you find it other ways. Doggone Jess is the first activator. You see that down here? Is active won't show up because you won't ever see him. If it goes inactive, it disappears from the map, so don't worry about that. If you want to go to their website, there it is there. There's even more info, like down here, it's got cut off is the last or the most time it was activated, who was there. Now, if you didn't like Sandy Creek Nature Center, you want it to be a park, can it qualify? Probably not, because all new parks have to be owned and operated by the state or federal governments. You can't have part or shared ownership. Can't be operated by a private group or nonprofits unless they're owned by the state or federal government. Got to have a decent website showing a map. They don't create new parks that are sub-parks to currently existing POTA parks. And if you still think it qualifies or just want to find out, submit the map manager for your state or your country request, and that's me. So Alpha Charlie 4 Sierra Hotel, go on QRZ. I'll be there. This is, what equipment do you need? Oh, this is where the bonus question comes in. You got to have a radio to go to a park. You got to have power. You got to have antenna. You got to have a way to log. Who knows what one device qualifies for all four of those? Come on. Say it loud. Crap, KH1. Because it's got a built-in notepad, antenna mount, microphone or CW key, and battery. All that stuff's there. Isn't that nice? But most of the time, we carry a lot more than the KH1. And Skip, where'd Skip go? I'll do your slides. That's okay. Skip has these classy-looking slides here that show his heavy-duty QRO in the RV or truck kit, which is pretty nice. You got a big 40-amp homebrew battery box he put together, nicely arranged power. I need you to do housekeeping for me. Mine don't look that neat. Power cord, microphone, USB, paddles, the 7300, a Harbor Freight case, and a couple of antennas. That box is right over here. When we finish with this, I want everybody to get up and walk around because we're set up ready to show you what this stuff looks like and to talk about the reason we made those choices. Skip, in this case, shows logging with a computer. Somebody coming in the back door. And Skip's walking kit, a lot lighter. KX2 in the middle, a couple of different antennas, the mini logbook, because he does this by pen and paper, and a little piece of RG316 cable, earbuds. I mean, you see it's a big difference from one to the other. And then we have another one. This is the mobile setup. A lot of people have their HF rigs set in the vehicles, and this is really nice because you got the radio sitting there, the ATAS antenna, which tunes itself anywhere. Does it go to 40 meters? 6 meters, 40 meters. It's a really broadbanded. If it's raining or something like that, it's a good time. You can just drive up and activate right there. And the Morse keys down there beside the shifter. Where's your microphone, Skip? I don't see it. Oh, I see it hanging there. And again, a mini log, pen and paper. This is the super light kit, almost down to the KH1 level, right? But the little lightweight batteries are wonderful to have such a small one. The Venus transceiver, 3-band QRP only, CW only, but hey, look how small it is, and you get to see it on the table in a moment. And then the paddle. And then we're not as sophisticated, but in our slides, we got great equipment, right? So there's Richard's got a MTR3B, which is CW only, super light, a little 850 LiPo battery, the AX2 antenna, which is cool in its own right. The knee board, somebody looked at your knee board pretty hard earlier. They wanted to get one of those. And the tuner AX1 and something I cut off right there. You can say it, but you wouldn't have the microphone. So Chris has got 891, 100 watt capable, running on a 20 amp Bio-Inno battery, random wire antenna, and he's got a 7,000 HDS soda beam smash. Was it 7 meters, right, Chris? 10 meters, okay, cool. So that's 33 feet almost. Collins, and you got other stuff over here to show, but he's got a 7300, a 15 amp Bio-Inno. Does it work as good as a 20? I'm joshing with you. The reason I do that is because when I'm pretty tight. I got a 12 amp I brought from my 891. I looked at the specs, and this is what I would say do. The surge capacity on the 12 amp is 23 amps. I said, that's going to do it for 100 watts, but I got the added benefit. I can take it on a plane if I have to, because you can carry a 12 amp on the plane legally. Got Colin's got his DX Commander and Buddy Stick set up over here. He runs N3FJP, which is a logging program on the, what's the other name for the Valve laptop? Jankopotamus, there you go. And he's got a solar rig set up, and a rig is an antenna analyzer over there too. Oh, that's me. I brought a KX2 single-sided headset. I'm proud of my little finger push to talk because I don't do CW, but I can type while I'm doing it. And with this one, I got the 6 amp Bioenno, and it's got the built-in, I don't know what that size is. It's really a lithium ion. I think I made a mistake on that. And I think I've got a link dipole. I made it Athens, Georgia, on a spider beam mast, and it's tied to a chair because I could do that at a park if I had to, but I usually don't. I run AC log, or sometimes if my battery goes dead, I'll use paper and pen. And then I've got a drive-on mast stand that I did not bring in, and a Wolf River coil. But we wound up with a lot of extra stuff in here, so I didn't bring that. The way do you set up? How do you set up? You go to a park shelter, go to a bench, go to a trail. You can do it in your vehicle, but everything that you've got has to be inside the park to qualify. Is this going too fast, or is it too simple and I need to speed up? Okay. So to do the park, you got to select a park, and you got to find the frequency you're going to be on. So you can look on POTA.app. You may know the parks, maybe not, but find the one that you like. Listen 3 times into what they say. So QRZ, is anybody using this frequency? And then surely somebody will be there when you get ready, but that's okay. And you look. I usually look on POTA.app for a couple of things. One is I like to find other park activators to work them before I ever get started. Make sure the radio's set up for one thing, and also see where anybody else is. And just in case, don't get outside of band, whether it's outside of the phone portion or outside of your class portion, whatever. And when you get all happy and want to spot yourself, you first go on add spot, and it's going to pop up with your call sign in both fields. You put your frequency in what unit of measure? Kilohertz. That means no dot after the 7 or the 14 or the 21. If you do, it shows up really pretty funny on the spotting page. The park reference, it's in red. You put in K2177 with a dash, and as soon as you clear the field, what happens? Now, it fills in whatever the part number is. And in this case, I'm saying, well, I see Scott, KW4NJA, he couldn't get spotted because he doesn't have good cell service. So he calls Claude up and says, Claude, will you do this? And I say, okay. So I put it in there, and I put comments down at the bottom. But you see, as soon as I put in Kilo 2206, it filled in the part number. That saved me a little bit lately because I forget part numbers mixed up, transposed. If it isn't in the right park and I look, I can keep from telling everybody I'm in the wrong place. I put the going for his kilo down there at the bottom just for a little fun, but that's why I don't use the thing. So what you have to be careful of is in the comments field. If you're respotting somebody, don't put something that looks like another mode. If you put in CW, you put in digital, you put in SSB, and that's the wrong mode, it will change over. I put a new battery in. Okay. And to drop off screen altogether, so this fellow said, would you mark me QRT because I don't have good cell coverage? I marked him QRT. And anywhere along in there, you mark QRT and it drops off the screen. You'll still see it on your view, but everybody else will pretty much lose it. Okay. That's pretty much a call. It's similar on CW. You basically say, what's the exchange for when you had a part? Oh, but I mean, when you call on CQ, you still, CQ POTA, this is day call sign November 1 Radio Bravo Delta in code, and you can put the part number too, and or not, it's not. Oh, you like Fort Yarrow? It's close to your house. And when you hear somebody call you, you call them back. Basically say, November 1, Radio Bravo Delta, thanks for finding the mic. You're 5'9" and Kilo 2177. And so you can put a little bit of something in there. But if you get a pileup, I talked to a few people, what do you do when you get that crazy pileup of calls coming? You take charge of it. You got to set your own pace. If there's 3 or 4 people call while we're still closing out the QSO before I said I'm finished, I usually ignore them, because if I ever start accepting people to come in the process, then I'm going to lose control and everybody's going to jump in there. If I say November 1 and I hear you with a bunch of other folks and I say, who's the November 1, then I'll take it. But it is up to you to run the show. Who's ever done a pileup?
One other thing back on the CQ stuff. One of the nice things about POTA, especially for newbies for CW, one of the nice things about POTA, especially for new CW operators, is that POTA operators are unbelievably gracious. And you can hear guys, hunters, who are just learning CW, and they're calling a station at, 10 words a minute or slower. And the POTA operators uniformly take them and slow down and let them get their contacts. It's really wonderful.
Well, that makes sense. And, that's sometimes have done quite a few park activations on sideband, and sort of the same thing applies there, because I try to pay attention to who's calling got a great signal, but they're not the first one. And if I hear one like that I've heard the guy call 3 or 4 times and he's goofing up the phonetics or pacing's a little off, I'll stop and say, let's talk for a second. Hey, because people do get confused. It's a lot like any other radio operation. You want to make it everybody happy and get as many contacts. That's what I like. But make the best contacts you can, so make it a good experience. Maybe I didn't get that. Okay. Who's ever heard of a twofer or threefer or fourfer? All right. Anybody know where any are? Where? Which one? Big Cedar, but Woody. Oh, Chestatee, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I didn't know the mountain name, but you're right. Woody Gap, and that's when I was telling somebody else, you can back up in the parking lot. Chestatee WMA's signs right there beside you. The AT crossing signs right here. Oh, by the way, you're inside Kilo, was it 4473? Oh, I'm kind of joking, what's the one for, I don't know, Chestatee? I do know the trail's 4556. And just in case you come to a park later or look back and say, doggone, I was just at Chestatee right there at Woody Gap, but I didn't send in the log for those other 2. You know what? You can send it any time you want to. Just got to have a decent log and you really did it. Club activations. Who's ever done a club activation? That's pretty fun because you get 2 credits for the same contact. The club gets to be the station, and the one that's actually manning the radio, the activator, the operator, gets credit too, so you can get a double like that. And multiple operators aren't quite the same thing. That's when, like, we may go to Fort Yargo or something like that, set up under a shelter, 4 of us be sitting there, and if you're willing to put up with the pain of waiting for 4 of us to talk to you, we will. We just pass the microphone around and around. Got to have patience. Okay, this is what goes in the log. Your call sign, your park number, your state, and the date. And I put that not highlighted because that doesn't change fast. The band and mode do change somewhat. But the ones that do, and this is what really matters, you look at my paper logs, is what time was it and what was the call sign. Because with that stuff, you can fix it. You can send it in. You can put in your frequency if you want to, or signal report, or the operator call sign, or the part-to-part number if you want that credit. But it's gotten pretty good at matching them up even if you don't put that in there. But you got to have the time, you got to have the call sign that you worked. And you can do it like we saw earlier with pen and paper on the little log books. Some people use voice recorders. Richard showed me his earlier. I was kidding about they were in RCP doing one on the river and let his GoPro camera do the record. You can go back and enter that log later. You don't have to have it there. Or you can do it on the computer or the phone and do it real time that way, whatever works best for you. But in the end, you got to send the file to POTA. You don't have to send it in as a file because you can use the manual log entry to do that. If you do it paperwork, you got to transfer it over to a logger. I didn't know you were just not just IT, actually operated a park. Okay. So you get different credibility now. Thanks for not sharpshooting me. The computer, this is some of the methods you can do it on the computers and phones. And there's probably others. And I just remembered a few of them. And N3FJP is my favorite, but that's okay. Hammers, who's used hammers a lot? I know a lot of people do, and the reason you do is it's easy. It looks like it makes sense. It's got a map built in it. Yeah, and it shows you the spotting page right away. If you put a entry in there, it'll fill out or pull up the POTA information. The downside of that is you got to have connectivity. Okay, so and the fast log entry, Richard mentioned using it because he primarily logs on paper and uses fast log entry to transfer it to an ADIF file. And anybody else got one they like, tell me about it, but that's okay. But in the end, you got to send it to POTA, whichever way you use it. I copied that slide. Just for your fun, I get a copy of Howard P. Edwards. Who in the world is Howard P. Edwards? But the reason I put this in there is not to give Chris a hard time about his name, but I use N3FJP all the time. And when I put it in, last entry I made for Chris, I put Chris over there because it wouldn't automatically fill it in. So I don't call you Howard, if I might do that. And you know, that's exactly right. That's a good attitude. And the other stuff, the call sign, these are default to 5.9. This is his part number, and it automatically fills in the time. So I got the big stuff that really matters right there. The mode is phone, 7212 is the frequency, but it puts the band, so I'm good to go. And if somebody says something that doesn't seem to match this data here, I use a version of N3FJP's data so that it's static. You do a download every month or so, and it will pull up a list. And you know, quite often you work with somebody you never heard of before, and you wonder if you got that letter right. If it doesn't sound like Joe talking, you know, maybe it's not Joe, maybe it's somebody else. Or they say they're in Florida, and it shows Arkansas. Something's not quite right. So it's kind of good QC. There's a hammer screen with the log showing at the bottom. And like I said before, it's got a spotter view that shows what's on the POTA spotter. And if I remember right, it alternates. It goes through a cycle. I may be right. And at the top is where you put in their call. And the RST, which is not so crazy. Gene, you must have been seeing this comma separated because I see it at the top there. And there's your frequency mode. All the other stuff is required. I will say that one cute thing about twofers on hammers that you have to do a different way on the N3FJP. If you put in the two parts like kilo 4473, what do you do for the second part? You put a comma in kilo 4556, and it'll break it down into two log entries in the end, which is pretty cute. So when you're ready, you want to upload your logs. It used to be, when old Claude first started, they didn't have this drag and drop files here. You had to email your logs in to K4 or K3 or whatever your call sign is at parksonair.com. Guys were great. Met a nice fellow down in Savannah called Bill DeLoach. He helped me a heck of a lot, so I can call him a remote mentor because he took the logs in. And he messed a few up, and I messed a few up, but that's okay. It's different now. When you drag and drop your files in there, it automatically scrubs them a first pass and says you were at this part at this time and everything looks good, or it says, oops, you messed something up right then before you ever submit it. Who's ever seen that? Never seen that. You ain't never tried, so that's okay. But if you didn't do fast log entry or whatever, and you got about 15 to 20 contacts, it works really slick. You go to the manual log entry, and it will input your file right there, and it asks you the questions. I don't think I ever put that in there. And so if you do it that way, it didn't have an ADF file from anywhere else, you can pull it back after you submit it and download an ADI file later. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Rich. Yeah, some people, and that's been warned a lot, it's still a beta mode thing. Some people were trying to use it to do it live logging, and it's not made for that. Probably times out. I've never tried that. Because until you get to the end of the entry, it doesn't record anything. I will say, I don't know about hammers, but on AC log, it's running on the old DBase or Microsoft Access format. Yeah, and those files, Access, when it first cranks up or anything using that file format, saves the entry every time you hit enter when you first start up, so it doesn't disappear, as far as I understand. Must be disabled. Oh, we're pretty much through the slideshow. I want to talk about the radios and walk around the room. You guys stand up if you want to and look at them. But that's what we brought all this stuff for. You got any big questions before we do that? Ideas, thoughts? How long do you stay on if you're an activator? However much time you got, what do you want to spend, how cold you're getting, what else you need to do in your life. Maybe I got thirsty or hungry or something else. Maybe my wife called me like she just did and said, you got to stop. But to me, if I get at least 10, I'm not truly satisfied. But for parks on the air, that counts as a qualified activation, though one contact needs to be sent in. I mean, my typical time, if I got plenty of time, is hardly ever more than 2 hours, and usually more like about an hour, 15 minutes. Anybody else, though, does way long, way short? You know, and that's a good point, Chris. I mean, sometimes you got the time. Sometimes you go into a park that you've been to a lot of time, but it's really not convenient to get to, but you like to get that kilo award. And a kilo award means that an activator has completed 1,000 contacts from that park and reported them to POTA. You get a nice slip, too. Any suggestions about what I should be doing different? Or 50 to 75, an hour and a half. So you're averaging almost one a minute, which is pretty typical, I would think. Oh. Yeah, see, if I started to do a bunch of screen prints on award certificates and metrics, it is great, but it gets so overwhelming. I had tons and tons of stuff to put up there, and but it is so good. If you ever sign up for POTA.app, I would tell you first thing, go to the awards tab on the hamburger menu. You will see if you've done a little bit of hunting, and you will have awards right away. If not, within, I think it's 10. And it's real quick. They start to pilot. 25 contacts, okay, and for an award, and they do pile up quickly and they look nice. I would say though, if you get another kilo at the same park, guess what? The date's not going to change. You might get an endorsement for 2 or something like that. But if you get another some type of same award, they don't update the dates, even though you wish they would. You know what they don't have an award for? No, I ain't going to say that. Yeah, activating all Georgia, but that's okay. The artwork's not ready. But there's a lot. But if you ever have any problems with anything, whether it's awards, metrics, send an email to help@parksonair.com. Don't quote them on Facebook, say they didn't do this for me, or don't go to Discord and say this happened to me and it shouldn't have. Help@parksonair.com is pretty darn responsive. Who's ever heard of a guy call sign Whiskey 7 Romeo Tango Alpha. I know you have, Colin. I know I have too. If you hadn't seen that one, you hadn't sent a ticket into the help desk, because Charlie lately is the one that's the most responsive, sends common sense emails, doesn't belittle you for the stupidity that you had, like when I sent something in wrong. And he makes it constructive so you don't have to worry. And he's a volunteer. Yeah, and also right up there, request support. That'll
And they've been helpful not only now with all the new things that they've added to make it more automated, but even back in the old days, they were also very responsive.
yeah, you're right, Colin. That's a good point, because if you do have a log goes in, it shows I made 62 contacts and I only made 30. Don't know why. Don't call me and say, help, Claude, I messed it up. I said, did you submit a request support ticket? Because you're right, within a half day or less, a lot of times quicker than that, you'll get an email right back.
And they'll remove it and allow you to make your corrections.
Yeah, don't try to send something else in to fix it.
They won't change it for you, but they'll let you make the corrections.
Exactly right. Thanks, that's a good point. All right, anybody else? Going once. Doggone it. I got to push that button. Oh, look what changed. Who did Georgia State Parks on the Air last year? How many parks were there? Oh, we activated 48. That's a halfway good answer. We tried to activate 50, but now it's 52 out there. What's the two new ones? That's right. Stone Mountain and Centennial Olympic Park. And there's a little bonus for those guys. Well, in a way, not for them that go there, but for the hunters that chase them. The hunters get an extra 50 points for contacting each of those parks. All right, so that's not what our class is about. Let's talk about radio. So if you'll help me turn the lights back on, we'll walk around the room. Okay.